Hello and welcome to episode 7, I believe, of the Watch It Bro podcast. I am Tristan,
And I'm Marshall, and we're
and
here to let Tristan keep talking.
yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think I figured out my audio finally. So
Yay!
I won't know until I edit, but
We
here's to
could test
hoping.
it.
We could test it. I don't want to test it. Let's just go.
Okay.
So
The audio hasn't been that bad. It's just a little off.
it's just a little echoey, like I'm talking into a bucket.
Yeah.
But I am
Like a
recording out of my garage, so
like an early Weird Al song where they record in the bathroom. It just kind of echoes,
yeah.
but it adds something to it.
So it adds character. But today I picked Maverick.
Woo!
Well, 2 weeks ago I picked Maverick. Today we're talking about Maverick.
True.
This was released May 20th, 1994.
It's kind of our sweet spot.
1994? Yeah. Early 90s. I don't know. Great Outdoors was a pretty good one, and that was 88.
True. I think that was our oldest movie thus far.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
this was this.
Okay.
Golly,
I'll stop
making it
interrupting you.
making it harder and harder to edit.
I'll let you get the intro out.
Thanks. Directed by Richard Donner, starring Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, James Garner, who played Brett Maverick in the TV show that this is based on. It also stars Graham Greene, who was in The Green Mile, James Coburn, and Alfred Molina, who you might know as Doc Ock in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy.
Yes.
Thank you for adding to that.
I didn't want to interrupt. But no, Graham Greene's one of my favorite actors.
Oh, he's also in Dances with Wolves. I've never saw that, but Rachel pointed it out.
He was in Dances as Wolves. He was in the show Reservation Dogs, and he was also in the new Marvel show Echo. He's been in
Reservation? Reservoir
yeah,
Dogs?
no, Reservation Dogs. It's a show that just came out within the last few years about life on a reservation.
Oh, okay, so you do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I like Graham Greene. He is hysterical in everything he does. He puts his all into it, and I feel like a lot of himself comes through his characters.
He wasn't very funny in The Green Mile.
Okay, I didn't see The Green Mile.
Okay.
That's what my wife says every time. She's like, "You haven't seen that yet, have you?" I'm like, "No, I haven't seen that." There's
Oh,
something.
wow. That's one of those have to movies.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, good thing we have a platform to make that happen, huh?
yes,
But it's also a 3-hour movie.
it is. And if you make me watch that, I'll make you watch Titanic.
Titanic's actually on my list. It's a great movie. Fine film.
But also, to add to the cast, James Coburn first was introduced to him during the Muppet movie. He owned the El Sleazo Tavern and gets tossed out, as well as Alfred Molina's first role was also in Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I didn't.
He had a bunch of spiders on him,
Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant in the slightest bit.
but
But
it led to his hatred of spiders and Spider-Man for the Doc Ock role. I don't know that. I'm just saying stuff now.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yes,
you are. And this movie is actually a lot longer than I remembered. I picked it thinking, oh yeah, nice little hour and a half movie. Nope, it clocked in at 2 hours and 7 minutes.
yep, yep. It was a little bit. I think this is the longest one we've done thus far.
Yeah, I think so. You pick. My cousin Vinny was close.
Yeah, it was a longer movie, but it didn't hit. I think it didn't hit that 2-hour mark.
Yeah, I don't have the look it up, but now I have to look it
No,
up.
wait, I got it.
Let's see who can find it first.
Where's the time on the back of these things? 120
119
minutes.
minutes.
Mine says approximately 120.
Mine says 119.
Okay.
So this is the longest movie to date that
Yes.
we've done.
I mean, it's a movie we watched a lot growing up.
It led to an obsession over the Ace of Spades.
Yes.
It led to, I think at one point you took a grandpa's video camera and we very blatantly ripped off the plot and made our own little film.
Yes, we did.
And then
With
I
just the
think
two of us.
with just the two, well, we had Renita and Caitlin in it periodically.
Oh,
Caitlin
jeez.
Caitlin was the annoying person in every scene that would cause mischief.
Yeah.
And then it got to the poker game where I was supposed to win, and then you got sick of waiting for me to win. So you just set the camera in the middle, and we filmed like an hour of a poker game. But just fill the tape up with a random poker game.
Yeah, that was a movie that I don't think we owned it. Grandma and Grandpa owned it, so we'd watch it over there. A lot of
Yeah,
times in the motorhome.
yeah, a lot of times in the motorhome, and I think I actually have Grandma and Grandpa's copy of it because
Well, one of us does.
I have a VHS of it, and you have a VHS of it because I think you bought your own VHS of it
That is possible. Yeah,
because
I think so. I may have had this for quite a while.
yeah, because I took mine directly from their house. I remember because I have like Cool Runnings and I have their copy of Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey.
Okay.
So it was very.
Sure about that?
Am I sure about what?
The Incredible Journey.
Yes, I took that from them. I remember specifically going over there and saying, "This is mine." I loved that movie as a kid. I'd always want to watch it. I always wanted to. Oh, how come we had these movies that I wanted, and mom and dad were just like, "Oh, we don't need to buy it. Grandma and grandpa have that movie. Watch it over there."
I don't know. I don't think we asked for a lot of movies.
Yeah, I remember asking for The Incredible Journey and Peter Pan, and both times I recall mom or dad saying, "Grandma and grandpa have that one. You can just watch it over there." And then with Peter Pan, it was, "Oh, Renee has it. You can just watch it over there."
Movies were pricey back then.
Yeah, I guess so. But this was a fun one. It
Or
was
mom didn't like Peter Pan.
I don't think that's true, but maybe. But the last time I think I watched this movie was probably 25 years ago. What about
Okay.
you?
Within the last 2 years.
Really? Okay.
So, yeah.
So yeah, I watched it, and of course Rachel watched it with me, and she also said it's been about 25 years since she watched it. So this was quite different because this was my first time watching it as an adult.
Oh, okay.
So there was a
I've
lot. It was
yeah, I may have seen it a few times over the last couple of years. I've definitely watched it more recently.
okay. Okay, fair. So shall we get into it?
Yes.
All right. Let me get, since it was my pick, I will be walking everybody through the movie.
Woohoo!
Yes, woohoo indeed. So we open with the opening credits, and an old jaunty tune is playing. It's basically just words popping up on a screen, and then the ace of spades flops down.
Yeah, it's on the green felt of a poker table too.
Yeah, and then we get a very large close up of Alfred Molina.
Yes. Yes, they are, featuring him prominently in this scene.
Very much so. And well, and then right after that we get an awkward close up of everybody. I think it goes to Mel Gibson or as Maverick, and he's got the noose around his neck. So clearly he's being hanged, and then it's got the rest of the crew that's there. Does a close up of everybody.
Yep, and it's that classic, "Yep, that's me. I bet you wondered how I got in this situation."
Yeah, definitely. I think this is the first one we had with the where the title character is actually narrating over the top of it.
You mean the first movie we've done?
Yeah, not the
Yes,
first
yes.
movie ever.
I was gonna say that's a big claim if it's the first movie ever, but no, yeah.
And so, yeah, it clearly looks like Maverick has gotten himself in a bit of trouble, and these you don't want to call them gangsters because they're not. But I think that existed then. But this group of outlaws, there it
Yeah,
is clearly settling a score with Maverick. They got him tied to a tree, his hands tied behind his back, and he's on his horse. They exchange some words, and Alfred Molina, his character, I'm just gonna name him now. His name's Angel.
yes.
Throws a bag of snakes down at the horse's feet, which causes it to start moving away from the snakes. And then we have Mel Gibson narrating basically what you said. Oh, I got myself in quite a scrape. And he starts, talking about how he's just had a bad day. And then it says, it all started. And so we go back to Maverick riding a donkey. And he says that it's his horse got stolen. So he got a replacement.
Yep,
And it wasn't exactly a thoroughbred. But he was 4 days away from the poker game of the century. He's still $3,000 short, and the pot is $500,000 goes to the winner, and a winner take all. And so it kind of plays the music and does the rest of the opening credits as we see Maverick kind of riding through this old western town, very much a western.
yeah, very very much a, you can say a western town, a pop-up town where everything's just kind of bare bones built,
It's just
not a
it's
lot
just
of
there to exist.
yeah. Yeah, I was looking at some of those shacks as they're heading up the little hill. Like those are just shacks.
Oh yeah. But the same thing I asked Rachel is like, how cool would it be to like stay in a town like that for a while?
I think that'd be kind of fun.
That would be so awesome. So Maverick arrives in town and he's clearly going to the bank because he needs money, as he mentioned earlier in his narration. And the bank is closed till morning. So he's stuck in town for the night at least. He pulls into I guess it's a horse holding station
A stable.
and stable. Yes, a stable. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hopefully I don't continue to talk like that and I can get it together. But
It's okay. I'll get out the right Western words.
thanks.
You're welcome.
And he asks the kid how much, and the kid yells, or forget what the kid says.
He says to store him or feed him.
Oh yeah, storm or feed him, and he goes, no, how much to take him? And the kid yells up, hey Pa, the guy's trying to sell a burro, and the Pa yells down, that thing ain't worth a buck, and Maverick says, sold.
Yep. He's done with it. He just doesn't want to be bothered with dealing with it anymore.
Yep, so he sells it for a buck, and he
I'm
continues.
guessing he didn't have much invested into it.
No, I don't think he did. So yeah, he sells it for a buck and walks off. And then we go to him exiting his hotel room upstairs at at the local bar, pub,
Tavern.
tavern, yeah. And so he comes downstairs. He notices the poker game going on, and he notices Jodie Foster,
Yes.
who plays Mrs. Annabelle Branson, which she adds the Mrs. the second time. But he tries to get in on the game, and Angel is at the table, who we saw at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
And he basically says, I like the game the way it is, saying Maverick can't sit down at the empty seat. And Maverick pleads his case. He goes, hey, I hardly bluff and I never cheat. And you know what? I'll lose for the first hour.
Like tends
So,
to win over everybody else at the table.
right, everyone else is like, oh, it's better than an empty seat. And so we go into this little montage of him comically losing.
Yep.
And in that montage, we actually get a good look at Art LaFleur, who you might recognize from Field of Dreams or Home Improvement, and he played Babe Ruth in The Sandlot,
Yes.
and more recently played the Tooth Fairy in the second and third Santa Claus movies.
Yes. Yes. Good character actor. He kind
Yep.
of shows up here and there.
You always recognize him when you see him.
Yep. You're like, oh, I like that guy. He's whatever you most recognize him from. Usually it's like, oh, it's Babe Ruth because the first time I saw him was Sandlot.
Yep, yep. He was also in Boy Meets World.
You don't know who he was. Boy Meets World.
It was like a little one-off episode in the later season after Sean's dad dies,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's takes a trailer and travels the country for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, so we get that lovely montage of Maverick comically losing, and they do a good job of signaling the passage of time throughout the movies, or this
Yes.
movie. So you know, you get people coming down, and they're lighting the candles inside the building, which lets you know a lot of time has gone by. It's starting to get into evening time, and they're still playing
Yeah, that's something that doesn't get conveyed a lot in movies sometimes, just how much time has passed between
between
scenes
things.
or scenes or yeah.
And so, yeah, so it gets to them actually playing a hand, and there's a kid in a very fine hat who has a decent hand. And then Maverick says, well, it's a good thing I had 3 6s,
Yes.
and beats him. And the kid is very upset about that and says that he doesn't think that hand should count because his head wasn't in the game.
Exactly. That
And
that is a valid reason.
absolutely a valid reason. And Maverick has the similar reaction that you just had of laughing in the boy's face.
Yeah.
And Maverick asks the kid's name, and the kid says his name is Johnny Harden, I believe was the last name.
Yep.
And you see Maverick kind of shuffle his chips, and then he asks what he does for a living, and the kid says he's a gunfighter. And so it was clear from Maverick's initial reaction that he knew who the kid was without asking his occupation. That
Yeah.
this kid is clearly a gunfighter with a reputation, and Maverick, makes small talk and pretends like he doesn't know who he is, and asks,
Yeah.
oh, you must be pretty good. And the kid goes, you wanna step outside and find out? And we get our first Maverick talking his way out of it, as he usually does in a comical fashion, making lots of jokes. We get the first Pappy quote. He says, "He who fights and runs away can run away another day." And an angel chimes in, "Have you always been gutless?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, pretty much."
Yeah.
And so he's, he's talking and being kind of over the top, and then he draws on the kid,
Yeah.
and he
Out of
draws
nowhere, it's just
very quick. And he's still talking, how much chance would I have had going up against you? And then draws his gun and surprises everybody and gets a very stern look on his face and looking the kid dead in the eye and says, "No chance at all. No chance whatsoever." And then
yeah.
holsters his gun, and he's always it again and draws again. Very irresponsibly playing with his firearm.
Yeah. Yeah. It says there's a spring in the holster to keep popping out.
Yeah, I mean, openly mocking this kid who's a well-reputed
Gun.
gunfighter.
Yes.
And Maverick's just got no fear of this kid. And so he's like, "Hey, who wants to see a guy get killed and who wants to play poker?" And they all decide that they don't want to see anyone get killed and they just want to play some poker.
Yeah.
And
So
so they sit back down, and Annabelle leans over to the gunfighter kid and goes, "That looked like it was pretty fast. Was that fast? It seemed pretty fast." And he kind of reluctantly goes, "Yeah, it was."
yeah.
to
So
just kind of show that he
uh,
was defeated.
fun fact.
Yes.
I don't know how fun, but it's a fact. Johnny Harden, the real life Johnny Harden, was in fact a gunfighter. He lived during the Western time, and he killed over 40 people before he was shot in the back of the head.
Who shot him?
I don't know.
That would have been a fun fact.
That would have been a fun fact. But
But no, actually, I'm glad that you had that information because I meant to look up if the name Johnny Harden was an actual real gunfighter.
yes, yes, he was, and he was good at it. And like I said, he killed over 40 people before being
Shot like a
ended
coward.
himself. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you can tell someone's a good gunfighter based on how they die. If he did not die in a gunfight and someone shot him in the back of the head, clearly that was the only way to kill the man. And then so they sit back down, and Maverick is now winning.
yes,
And Angel gets very mad and starts accusing him of cheating and all this stuff. And Maverick comes out with it and he goes, "What do you think I was doing during that first hour? I was learning all your tells," which very smart. And as a kid, had no idea what that meant. Didn't know anything about poker.
yes. He proceeds to point out Angel's tell, particularly when he shuffles his front cards to his back and his back cards to his front. And
Yes, he just piles on. Clearly, the man does not know when to stop.
no, he likes needling people.
Yes, and so it's getting more and more heated to the point where Angel is about to punch Maverick. And as that happens, another group of outlaws bust in and say, "That guy's ours. You can have him next."
Yeah, I still watching that scene. I have no idea what the dude's talking about when they come in.
No.
He's like, "I seen you through the window. I saw the lights," and he just starts rambling about who knows what. And then Maverick's just like, "Well, you guys were drunk. You played bad. Is that my fault?" And it's like, "Okay, sure.
Yes, it is, they said.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is."
And so then they step out into the street to have it out, and Maverick gives his coat and his gun to some kid standing by and says to if it looks like he's losing to shoot him.
Yeah, if it looks like they're whipping me too bad, you have my permission to shoot me.
It's great. I think it's great. And so the fight is underway, and that kid is ready to shoot from the word go.
Oh, yeah, they start swinging at Maverick, that kid pulls the gun out, he's like, "This isn't gonna go well, I'm gonna kill him right now."
I mean, yeah, he's like aimed and like ready. He's got a finger on the trigger and everything. Like
He
he's
doesn't want this
ready.
guy to he does not want this guy to suffer.
No, it's good kid. Maybe not the best choice by Maverick.
Yeah.
So he ends up winning, and everyone sees. So he chases them off. Angel's watching from the doorway, and he kind of ducks back in a little sheepishly.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
he's
then
like, "Oh, I did I oh."
I underestimated this guy.
Yeah.
And so they get back in, and Maverick notices some dirt scuff on his lucky shirt and flips out.
Yeah, he goes back from like, "Whew, that was tough," and then he's mad because there's dirt on his shirt, and he's like, "There's dirt on my shirt, come on!"
Yeah.
It's
And
one
then
last thing.
and then he goes to Angel. He's like, you were saying something about me. What is it? Would you call me a coward and a?" And he goes, no, 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 I didn't say anything like that. And of course, Annabelle, being the lovely little helper she is, chimes in. He goes, "Oh, he called you a coward and a cheat." And he's like, "Oh no, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't call a man a coward. You don't call a man a coward." And
Cheat, cheat, you called me a cheat?
oh yeah, it played so great because you could just see like not necessarily fear in Angel's eyes, but he's definitely playing it like not like he's afraid of him in a way of like the dude's really intimidating, but like he's just set off someone who is insane and
Yes.
he's trying to save the life of everybody else in the bar.
Yeah,
I think the way he played it was great because it wasn't he didn't come off as like a coward or a wimp or anything. He
yeah.
came off as someone who literally was like bit off more than he could chew and didn't want to deal with the headache that this guy was going to be.
Right, right, and he's trying to calm down. I was like, "Hey, hey, I was just teasing." He's and
Right.
then Maverick switches again. He's like, "Oh, teasing. I don't like being teased."
Yeah. No, I was teasing you now. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
Just just messing with this guy. But
If you
But I think Alfred Molina really played that scene very well because that whole character he plays beautifully. But I think specifically there were so many ways he could have played that interaction with Mel Gibson,
Yeah,
and I think he absolutely made the right choice in playing it as like just trying to calm this lunatic down for the sake of everybody.
yeah,
And I think that's what made it that's what made his character believable later on
yeah.
is the
Well,
fact that he wasn't backing down because he was scared of him. It was like this guy is absolutely like nuts. I don't know what's going on. So let's just
yeah, let's just
diffuse the
let's just
situation.
calm it down. Stop poking the bear, Annabelle, but we're just
Yeah, right? Fantastic. So they all end up sitting back down at the table and resuming their poker game.
There's a few less people than Johnny Hardin leaves at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A couple people decide they don't want to play with Maverick anymore. Can't imagine why.
Right, right, and now Maverick is just focused on Angel, it seems like.
Yeah. It's kind of personal.
Yeah.
So from here we cut to Maverick in his hotel room and there's a little knock at the door. And so logically he goes for his gun.
Yes, yes, after a big fight in the bar, poker game, someone's knocking at your door.
And the fact that he's not sure Angel bought it.
Right, and assuming he did pretty well at the game too.
Yeah. So he's not sure that people aren't going to be coming after him because he insulted the gunfighter first of all and made fun of the kid. And
Yeah.
he kept calling him son, like
Uh-huh.
to be condescending. And this movie, I missed so many of the jokes as a kid,
Yeah.
so many of them, and now, so watching it now, it was just like I was laughing so hard through so much of the movie because I finally got. I mean, this is the comedy style of this was even like ahead of its time too, because you
Yeah.
just have joke, 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 joke in rapid succession, and it's so fast paced. It doesn't even give you a chance to breathe at times.
True.
And I'm getting into the end of stuff, but like wow. So it reveals it's Annabelle at the door, and she comes in to be all flirty flirty with
Yep.
Mav, and so she smooches him, and as she's leaving, he says, I can't go on without my wallet, and then she gets mad at him because she got caught,
Yes.
and he laughs at her. What a very cute scene. It's very funny.
Yeah, and they do a good job of actually building the relationship between these 2 throughout the movie,
Yes, they do
because
very much.
now they're just kinda, like, still acquaintances. She's being all flirty, he's kinda flirty back, but then he's like, "Oh, I gotta report this because 'cause I'm a law-abiding citizen," and she's like, "Oh, come on," and it's there's that playfulness there that keeps getting built upon.
Right. And so he decides, well, no harm, no foul. I'll leave it alone. And then she's like, "Oh, thank you," and starts to leave. And then she turns around and she's like, "Well, how come you're just so dang likable?"
Yes.
And starts giving him a hard time, and eventually
Likeable and
works.
irritating.
Yeah, just making fun of him, playfully and flirty still.
Yep.
And he's basically like, "There is no Mr. Bransford, or is there?" And no, there's not. There's no Mrs. Maverick. So, and he asks, and he makes fun of her accent.
Yes.
He goes, "Where exactly is that from?" She's like, "Well, most people like my accent." He's like, "Yeah, I can't place it. It needs some work."
People like my Southern. Like, that's not under dispute. I just don't know where it's from.
Right. And so she smooches him again and leaves. And this time she successfully snagged his wallet.
Yes.
And he's opens the door to go after her and then thinks about it for a second. And we cut to him standing outside her window as she's trying to skip town with his money. And he, startles her. And so she smacks him
Right.
because
Because it's his fault for scaring her.
right, because that's the logical thing to do. And he's like, "All right, you got me, but this time you're gonna do something for me." And he starts taking off his shirt, and she's like, "Oh, whoa, hey, no." And he's like, "I'm not that lady. I want you to clean this for me."
Yeah.
And then she seems offended that he doesn't want her in that regard.
Right.
It's,
He yes, she is offended that he does not want her in the well, we'll go with the word again, the whoopee fashion.
yes, yes. I was gonna look up a 19 or an 1860s slang for intimacy, but I I didn't feel like it.
That's fair. We'll just use whoopee again.
I'll come up with something else later, so it's not repetitive.
Or intimacy.
Or intimacy. Intimacy's good. But yes, she is offended, and then he gives her his shirt to clean,
Yes.
and she calls him Bert, not,
Yes.
and he corrects her. It's Brett.
Brett.
And then we go to the next morning, and Maverick goes to the bank to see his friend who owns the bank and pretends to rob him.
Yes, Eugene, the bank
Eugene.
manager.
Heavy Irish accent on that man.
Well, and the bank teller, he's like, "You can't go in there. He's busy." And Maverick's just like, "No, no, shh, this will be funny." And the guy just lets him back there to the manager's office
Yeah.
to where he proceeds to pull a gun at him and yell at him and get up, get up. He's like, "Whoa, Maverick, what's going on?"
Yeah, and then the teller comes back to see what's going on and is like, "Oh, it's a robbery. Let me announce it to everybody."
Yeah. And Eugene and Maverick are like, "No, no, no, we're just joking. This is an old friend."
Yeah, hilarious. And then so he Maverick's like, "I'm here for the $1,000 you owe me," because that's the whole plot of the movie is he's going to these. There's three people that owe him $1,000, which is what he needs to join the game.
Right.
And so Eugene is like, "Huh, I don't have your money. I'm down to me last 100."
Good pull for the accent. I
Thanks.
like.
I figured I'd go for it, see what happens.
Yeah,
Leave it in
yeah.
there. And so he gives him his last 100, and Maverick's like, fighting a little bit, and he's like, "No, I insist. It's my last 100. You can have it." And as shortly after that, the teller comes back in and goes, "It's a robbery," and they're like, "No, no, we told you everything's fine."
Before that, though, Maverick's talking to him about trying to get the money and how one of his friends passed away that owed him money, and his wife used the money for the funeral, and he's like, "Oh, they never found the body." And he's like, "What? They never found the body?" "Yeah, there was no body." And he's like,
That's
"The
right.
widow conned me?" He's like, "What's with people? You can't even trust your friends anymore." So we're getting some information about who all Maverick's been talking to and trying to get that last bits of money that he has
Right. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the game. But yeah, the teller comes back in and is like, "It's a robbery."
Yep. And they're like, "No, no, it's fine. We told you already." And then the robber comes in, the
Yes.
wonderful Danny Glover.
Yes, which is a fantastic reference I didn't used to get early when I was a kid, but as an adult watching it, I the reference there because Mel Gibson and Danny Glover worked together on 4 movies, the Lethal Weapon movies,
Yes.
also directed by Richard Donner, who directed this movie.
I didn't know it was directed by the same guy. But yes,
And the Lethal Weapon theme is played over this scene in kind of an old-timey westerny feel.
that I missed.
As
But
soon as it started playing, I'm like, "Oh, that's the music."
yeah, yeah, when this scene came and I saw it was Danny Glover, I'm like, oh, this part's great because I knew as a kid that it was a Lethal Weapon reference. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember that from long ago, and they're sitting there, and they're like, he's robbing it and he pulls out like he robs them, and so Mel Gibson gives him the 100 he just got, and then the bank Eugene is like, oh, I don't have anything, and
He's
he's
like, "You
like,
better do better than that."
you gotta do better than that guy. He's like, okay, well, here you go, and hands him his wallet, and it falls open, and there's probably thousands of dollars in there.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover both counting it together.
yeah, you see Mel Gibson like, can I just let me just get my 1,000 real quick, and you can have the
Yeah,
rest.
Glover's like, "Don't touch that."
What are you doing? And then Mel Gibson pulls down his bandana, and they have this moment where they like look at each other like they know each other, and then shake their head. Nah, couldn't be. Which that's
Yeah,
the joke. And then Danny Glover leaves and says, "Y'all better get down if you want to keep your heads." As he's setting up dynamite
yeah,
and
blow the safe.
lights it and blows the safe, and then it goes to out front, and you see him running out, and he goes, "Oh, I'm getting too old for this stuff." As he's running away, which was, if you've ever seen Lethal Weapon, you know that is a famous line from those movies.
Slightly altered.
Well, I altered it. He actually says it verbatim.
I know.
Okay, yeah, I altered it because we're a family friendly podcast and we don't have any bad language.
Correct.
And then right after that, the 4 guys from the poker game who beat up Maverick or got beat up by Maverick corner him and pull him behind the bank. And we find out that Maverick offered them $5 each to take a fall.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, where's our money? And he goes, you're never going to believe this, guys. I was just in the bank that just got robbed. I don't have it. And they're getting mighty angry. And he's like, well, you know what? I always keep something pinned to the inside of my jacket just for a rainy day. And the guy's like, oh, good, because it was starting to cloud up pretty quick.
Yeah, he chuckles like, here."
Yeah, he goes, I'm going to need some change back from this, guys. They're like, oh, okay. So they all start pooling their money
Oh,
together.
because it's a $100 bill. That's
Right, yeah. It's $100 bill. I forgot to mention that. And he's like, but I'm gonna need some change back for this. And he's like, oh yeah, yeah. And so they all start pooling their money together, and you find out that like 2 of the guys had owed 2 of the other guys money, and it's like, hey, you've owed me $8 for a month, and you got 17. Just they're
yeah.
bickering amongst themselves, which is funny. And I don't did it ever come give you a total of how much they had?
No, he said 80 would be great, 75 would be okay. And he says, "I think you guys got off better than you think you did."
Yeah.
So I think we got close to that. But then they're looking at the $100 and like, that's 25 apiece. Regardless of how much each one of them put in, they're thinking they each get $25. So some people are gonna come out way better than others.
True, but I appreciate the spirit of they're all in that together
Oh,
equally.
yes, they all pool their money together. They got this $100 bill. Now everybody's getting 25, even though maybe one of them put in $6, the other one put in $30. It's
Right. There might be a guy who actually lost $5,
exactly.
but these are clearly not smart people.
Not no, no, and we'll find out how not smart they are in a little bit.
Yes, we do. And originally, for some reason, I thought there was 5 of them, and I'm like, oh, well, can't even math.
Yeah, I growing up, I thought it was a math joke that they were getting it wrong. Like, there's 5 of the guys, but it's a joke that they're not taking into account the amount of money that each one of them put in for the
Right, paying everybody back what they put in,
right,
and then
right.
splitting the remainder.
Yes, it's like, okay, we split this 25 apiece. Yay! Like, wait a minute, I put in 30, and I'm I'm losing money on this.
Yeah, yeah. I just lost $5 on this deal. I had to
Yeah.
pay $5 to get hit. Okay, so we're back in the hotel room when he's trying to pull his magic cutting to any card. He's narrating over that he used to believe if he concentrated on a card hard enough, he could actually cut to it. And
Yes.
we see him pick up, what is it, like the 8 of clubs or something?
Yeah.
And he's just like, ah, dang. And like, we don't actually know what card he was going for.
Right. But it wasn't that one.
What, yeah, we just know it wasn't that one. And I remember growing up always thinking it was the Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess as an 8-year-old, I thought the Ace of Spades was the best card in the deck.
Yeah. That could be. I mean, technically,
It might be the most common card that people think of.
yeah. I think that suit outranks the other suits if you're getting down to it. So if it's
The highest card in the deck.
yeah, ace high, but it's spades ace high. It's the highest. I don't.
I think the order of rank goes spades, hearts, clubs, diamonds.
Yeah.
And then we get a second Pappy quote, and I did not write this one down. Did you?
No.
But we get a second quote from his Pappy. And then his shirt is on his bed. He unwraps it, and we see that Annabelle has taken the sleeves in quite a few inches, and they come
About 4 inches.
4 inches. They basically just extend just past his elbow.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
maybe about 5 or 6 inches.
and so he pokes his head out and sees her, and he is after her in a hurry, and she's getting in line for the coach that they're gonna take, and so he runs down there and makes it in time, and it's like, "Hey, you shrunk my shirt on purpose," and she's like, "Well, of course I did," which is great.
Yeah.
She's like, "Learn
Yeah.
to do your own laundry, you jerk."
And he's like, my underwear comes from New York. Do you know where this shirt comes from? Paris, France. You can't get this in a dry goods store. It's a fancy shirt.
Yeah. And then he is interrupted by Zane Cooper.
Marshall, Zane Cooper.
We don't know that yet.
Oh,
We don't know that till later.
well, then cut that out.
I will. And who is played? We meet Zane Cooper, who is played by the late James Garner. They have some dialogue and banter back and forth, and he seems to be protective over Annabelle, helps
Yes.
her up into the coach,
Guy
and
being chivalrous and protective.
yes, and then there's an old man behind, and we meet, and he turns out he's the driver who looks like he just came from his own funeral.
Yes, yes, and this is great too because Cooper is like, "Oh, come on, Annabelle, let's get you in," and the other guy shows up, and Maverick's like, "Oh, I can be, I,
I could
I
be
can be,
nice too.
I can be nice too. Come on, old man, let's go, let's get you in." He's like, "No, no, I'm the driver. Get me up there."
And he's like, "Are you okay?" And the driver's like, "Why does everyone keep asking me that?"
So, and I watched this a couple times. So they're on a stagecoach on a ferry to get across the river.
Yes.
So they're actually on a boat at first, but the stagecoach guy is just ready to. He's on top, ready to go as soon as they land.
Right, because they get in the coach, and because the ferry stops at the end, so they just want to drive right off.
Right. Right. So they're and it doesn't look like it's going to be a short ride because I think it's just across the little river. They're not going down or up. It's just to
It's
get to the
just
other side.
yeah. And so while they're on there, they kind of get to know each other. We find out that Zane Cooper is a man of the law, and then we get to the other side of the boat.
Yeah.
What?
We
What?
find out there that he's a lawman.
Yeah, that's when we do. Because
I
what?
I said it like 5 minutes earlier.
Because you've seen the movie before. But he introduced himself as Zane Cooper, and then they're talking, and Annabelle goes, "Well, what do you do for a living, Mr. Cooper?" No, she doesn't call him Mr. Cooper. They're not hanging with Mr. Cooper.
She doesn't call him Zane either. I think she just, "What do you do for a living?"
Yeah, and then he says, "I'm a lawman." So that's when it's revealed to the first time watchers that
That
he
he
is, in
is
fact, a lawman.
yes, we don't know what kind of lawman.
Right. So they get off the boat.
Yes,
And
they get off the boat.
eh,
The ferry lands and the coach just goes.
yes. And the driver is driving the coach, and we get some beautiful, beautiful open shots of the landscape of the desert. I mean,
Yes.
the landscape shots that they did for this movie, like I watched the DVD,
Okay.
but still, I mean, it's still not 4K. Like, it's
Yeah.
still not high def. But even though it's 1994 camera work, the landscape is still just beautiful.
I watched the VHS.
My my son broke my VHS player, so
Oh,
yeah, he
see if I have another one lying around.
I would appreciate that. Yeah, he put stuff in it, and we didn't notice. So
Like
when we went,
a chick?
yeah,
They get a chick out of a VCR.
this is the third Friends reference of the podcast, and our second episode with Friends references in it.
Oh, we'll have to up the Friends references then.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I did two in My Cousin Vinny,
True.
so yeah, we do have to do more Friends references. But yeah, I don't know what he was using it for, but he just kept sticking things in there, and we had no idea because it's got that little flap that covers it.
Right.
And so we went to go play a VHS, and we hear, "Grrr." And we're like, what? Eject it. We open it up, turn it upside down, and just all this stuff starts falling out of it. And it didn't work after that.
uh, kids.
Ah, toddlers. I'm like, I knew we should have put that up higher. Yeah, so we cut from the beautiful shots of the landscape and the stagecoach traversing the landscapes. Go back to town to Angel, and he runs into the guys that Maverick paid, and they start laughing at him.
Yes. This is the bit I was referring to when we find out exactly how not smart they are.
Yeah, and the Angel's, hey, is something funny? And they're like, oh yeah. And they basically spill the beans that Maverick paid them $5 each to take a fall. And Angel says, huh, you guys should have come to see me first. I would have let you fall down for free. And he grabs a cast iron pan and
Yeah,
hits one guy in the face with it, or just right on the side of the head, and knocks him cold,
down.
and hits another guy with it, and pretty brutally beats up all four of them, and then ties a rope around one guy's neck, socks him in the stomach, and leaves him there for dead.
Yeah. I think the guy saved him, but
Yeah, they waited for Angel to leave, and then they picked him up and untied
yeah.
him. And but yeah, the old man's sitting there just like minding his own business, eating,
Yeah, he just food watching this go down.
just like, I'm not no way, no how getting involved in any of that.
Yep.
And so that's just a little kind of add on to Angel's hatred for Maverick. And then we go back to the coach,
Yep.
and it is running fast and out of control.
Yeah, this also does a good job of this scene showing the passage of time too. You feel like a lot of time has passed from when they got off the ferry to this point.
Yeah, I think the montage prior to that did it.
Yeah, we
Because
get the sun moving in different ways, the different landscaping shops, and I think Maverick's asleep when we come back to the
yeah, they gets jostled awake.
yeah, and that does
And
also indication of a passage of time.
yeah, well, and then the fact that they did the montage to do a passage of time, and then they cut to a different area and told a little bit more of the story somewhere else, and then came back to it, and they're still in the stagecoach and sleeping.
Yeah,
So they usually use scene cuts to show a passage of time, and the fact that they use the scene cut to show to go to something else and then come back and they're still riding in the stagecoach kind of lets you know they've been riding in that thing for a long time. And so Maverick goes up to check on the driver, and driver's dead.
yeah,
And Coop very nobly volunteers Maverick to go stop the horses while he checks on the tire.
yes. They said there's something wrong with the wheel, and if this wheel comes loose, we're all dead. So get up there and deal with the horses.
Right. And so Maverick, I mean, it's just everything he tries just fails. He ends up underneath this coach. He ends up behind the coach.
Yep.
Eventually ends up on top of the coach.
Yeah, I mean, because he grabs a hold of the rack on the back that holds all the luggage in, and that comes loose and just hangs by the bottom strap, so he's being dragged for a little while.
Yeah, and he finally gets up there and moves the dead guy out of the way and plops him down in front of Annabelle and scares her. And then he pops his head down. Oh, sorry, and she slaps him.
Yeah.
And then he gets up to the coaches where the driver was.
Yes.
And So we're assuming the driver dropped the reins, right?
Yes, yes, the reins have been dropped, so they're on the ground getting tore up, and so he's got to jump down to the horses and slow them down.
Okay, because I was wondering, I'm like, why didn't he just pull the ropes from the reins from from the coach? But
Yeah,
because
because
they were dropped,
they had they have dropped.
and so he does that as they're approaching a cliff,
Yeah.
and the horses stop on a dime,
Oh, yeah, they're
like
just like, "Oh."
yeah, immediately stop, and that launches Maverick off and over a cliff,
Yes.
and he's hanging on. So Coop and Annabelle come up to check on him, and he goes, "So how was the wheel?" And Annabelle's like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with the wheel," being her usual helpful self. And he's like, "I know, I had a great look at it from underneath the coach."
Yeah.
And then Coop extends his hand to help him up, and Maverick pulls his gun and says, "Don't you ever try to help me again," because he
Yes,
said they were helping him to build character by letting him do it.
yes, yes, it builds character to let him.
And so they walk away, and he's starting to pull himself up, and then he slips and humbly asks for help.
Help.
He's like, "Well, James, and Coop's like, I'm sorry, what was that? Help me, please." And of course, Zane's not going to let him fall. So Coop pulls him up.
It's like, "Yeah, okay, come here.
Yeah, and he's like, "Grab my hand," and he goes, "No, no, no, you grab my hand."
Look out for the cactus. I don't care about the cactus."
Yes. And then he gets him up to safety, and does he shove him over? He just shoves him over and goes, "Oh,
Yeah,
no, get your hands off me!"
yeah, he he pushes Coop down, he's like, "Don't touch me."
And then it cuts to them. They basically bury the driver under a bunch of rocks.
Yeah, classic makeshift grave in most Western movies.
Okay. And so they, yeah, get him under the rocks. They put like a little stick there with his hat on top of it as a kind of a grave marker. And Coop's like, well, someone ought to say something nice about the deceased. And so Maverick decides that he's going to start singing Amazing Grace.
Yep.
Because that's just, I mean, that's what you sing at a funeral, I
Yeah.
guess.
So they all start singing Amazing Grace, and it fades to the next scene.
Yeah, it goes to, I guess, the telegraph office, the post office, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, telegraph office.
And the guy gets a telegraph. You hear it kind of beeping in. The guy rips it and hands it to Angel, and it says, "Do not let Maverick get to the big game."
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, so somebody has it out for Maverick.
Yes. So that raises the question, did Angel know of Maverick before he came into the tavern? Was he waiting for Maverick to be there?
Oh, I mean, because he probably didn't know him by face because people don't have pictures.
Right.
Maybe he just knew there was going to be a guy named Maverick.
People do have pictures. There's
Yeah.
pictures back then. But no, he's not getting a text saying, "Take care of this guy."
Right, but like, okay, someone has a picture of him. It's not like someone like was like, "Here, let me pull out my wallet. See this guy right here? Don't let him get to the game." He could have been told like, "Hey, there's if you run into a guy named Maverick."
Yeah, but I mean, if he was getting a telegram from the town he was in, whoever sent him the telegram had to know he was in that town.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he's been either trailing Maverick or knew Maverick was coming that way and was supposed to either intervene or something.
Or
It's like, hey, if Maverick comes through this way, send me a telegram. And he sends whoever a telegram saying, hey, Maverick's in this town. He just hopped on a stage and headed out. And then
that
again, he gets one back and it's like, okay, here, don't
that
let him
could
make the
be
game.
that could be that he didn't necessarily know he wasn't necessarily waiting for Maverick. He was just there in case Maverick came that way.
Yeah.
And the fact that he did run into Maverick, that got him involved.
Yes.
Okay. So then they stumble upon a wagon train that has been robbed by natives.
Yes.
And Maverick offers to go handle it. First he's like, "Well, there's no hostile natives in this area." And of course, he's wrong because the stagecoach, you can't see me. I'm doing air quotes when he said
I
wrong.
yeah.
Air quotes. I'm talking to the listeners. You can't hear
I
the air quotes.
but
But
yes, He
Yes.
says there's no hostile natives in this area.
Says that it's white people masquerading as natives, playing on the settlers' fears of natives. And of course, he gets told he's wrong, and then he says, "If I can get your money back for you, would that be worth?" First, he asks, "How much money is it?" And Annabelle's like, "What a horrible question to ask. So, how much money is it?" In the
Yeah.
same breath, and they find out it's $30,000, and Brett's like, "I only need three. If I can get it back for you, would that be worth 10%?" Which would cover his what he needs to get into the game.
So he wouldn't have to hunt anymore.
Yep, he could just collect his money and go to the game. And they reluctantly agree. And did you catch the two sisters' names?
Mary Margaret.
And
I don't know the other one.
Margaret Mary.
Oh, Mary Margaret and Margaret Mary.
Yes.
I did not catch that other name.
Yeah, that was great. They're Mary Margaret and Margaret Mary, and they both refer to each other as such. And so they reluctantly agree to give Maverick the 10% if he gets the money back, and so it cuts to Maverick
Yes,
tracking the thieves with Coop and Annabelle
in tow. Yes.
in tow because Annabelle wants a cut, and I think Coop kind of wants to see Maverick die.
I mean, they've been traveling together, so just keep
Yeah.
traveling together.
He clearly wants to keep an eye on Maverick.
Yeah, or Annabelle.
Either or, yeah. So, and then they're talking about Annabelle wants her cut because she's gonna help.
Yes. Like, what are you gonna do for your cut?
Yeah, she's like, "I'm gonna help," and he's like, "How are you gonna help?" And then she trips and falls, grabs him by the waist, grabs his gun, and sends a shot right into the dirt, which is great because you don't really know Jodie Foster to do visual comedy like that.
Yes, and I have a fun fact that'll come up short. No, no, it pertains now. So they pulled up on the wagon train with the wagon from the stagecoach they were riding in. Now they're on foot looking for the natives. But when they get off the stagecoach, Annabelle's got her little parasol,
Yeah.
and Maverick reaches like he's gonna help her down, but he grabs the parasol instead and holds that, and she kind of stumbles off the stagecoach. And the director liked that bit so much they kind of added a bit more of clumsiness to her character. Like
Okay.
I mean, she's capable. But she's got a little bit of a stumble to her, which is why she was kind of the pushing her out the window or the stumbling over the rocks and letting the gun off. They decided to add a little bit more clumsiness to that character.
And I like it. I like the way they did it too because they didn't go over the top with it. There's just a few moments of it.
No, and it didn't diminish her at all as a character either. It was just she's just
It was always that she was always it was always charming the way she did it.
yeah.
And it was always an endearing thing. So great timing there. But so yeah, so then Maverick gets on the ground like he's listening to the dirt, and Annabelle mimics him. "What are we doing? What are we listening for? What do you hear?" And he goes, "Here. The best time to track him is at sundown. I figure I'm gonna take myself a little nap until then."
Yeah, he rolls over and gets comfy.
Yep. And takes a nap. And now it's dark time. They track them thieves and find them.
Yeah, this is he finds some hoof prints and he's like, "See? These are shod horse prints and the natives don't shaw their horses."
Oh, yes, that's a very important thing that was a little earlier. And now they're outside the thieves' camp. It's dark, and they're kind of coming up with an action plan, and they're arguing over how they're going to split the reward. And eventually they come to an agreement, and they send Maverick out there to confront them.
Right, because Maverick's trying to get like, "Okay, we can take them." Coop's like, "What's this we talk?
Yeah,
This is
you
your
keep on
show."
you keep on using this word "we."
Yeah, so and he, gets Annabelle's Derringer before heading out there.
Right, which bumps her up to 60% or
Yes.
40% from 30.
60-40, and to Coop, "You got my back if anything goes wrong." Coop's like, "Of course." He's like, this isn't any, the wheels coming off, is it?" He's like, "No, no, this is about dying," and he pulls out his gun. It's like, "I got you if it comes to it."
Well, then he looks at Annabelle and goes, "No."
That wheel was about broken bones, this is about dying.
Yeah. But he gives Annabelle a look and shakes his head like, no, he's not going to. As soon as Maverick turns around and walks away,
Yeah.
and so Maverick stands by the fire and wakes up the thieves and says, "Hey, we're not, no need to be afraid. I'm just traveling by and noticed your fire. Also, each of you has a gun fixed on your head right now." And then he says, "Zane Cooper and Annabelle Bransford are
Ugly
out there.
Bransford.
Ugly Annie Bransford." And yeah, he takes an opportunity to really make fun of them, and he has some pretty good lines in there about little Annie Bransford. And he says, "Now whistle to let them know that you're out there." And as it turns out, neither one of them can whistle. So he says, "Well, go ahead and clap if you can't whistle." And so they clap, and one of the thieves who's drunk, they're all drunk, but one of the thieves decides he's going to be bold and goes for his gun, and then a gunfight ensues.
Yeah, yeah. Brent was just trying to, since they're all drunk and confused, just round them all up and get them
Right, get them all
moving.
tied up and moved back to settle it peacefully.
Yeah,
And then there was that one guy who decided he was going to take action. And yeah, so a gunfight ensues, and Maverick does pretty okay for himself. Coop steps in a couple times, very
yeah,
subtly.
yeah. Just a shot here and there. Maverick even ends up using the Derringer.
Yeah, and Annabelle, "Oh, that was my gun. That was my gun."
Yeah,
All proud of herself that her gun shot somebody.
yeah, yeah. She was excited about it, and she was reluctant to give it to him before. She's like, "You're the fastest. Why do you need my little gun?"
And then saying, "Who says he's the fastest?"
He's like, "It's true. I'm fast, but when it comes to people, I can't hit. I can't
Yeah,
hit anybody."
yeah, I'm fast, but I can't hit anything, especially when
Yeah,
it's people.
yeah, yeah.
And as it turns out, because I don't think they actually kill a single thief.
No, no, he what is he? He kicks the fire at one point to just kinda get ash and smoke and coals up in someone's faces. He shoots a couple rocks off the ledge and, a
Yeah,
couple people in the hand so they can't use their guns anymore, but
yeah, they don't kill anybody, and then they find the money, and they go back to they take the
and Maverick's like, "Don't let her touch that money."
don't let her within 10 yards of that money because they decide that Coop should handle the money,
Yes.
being the lawman.
Yeah, which is a
Mm,
good choice.
it is. And so they go back to the wagon train where we see the thieves are all tied up to one of the coaches, and kids are hitting them with sticks.
Yes. Very common practice back in the Western times.
Was it?
For criminals, you catch a criminal and you pelt them with rocks or sticks or yeah.
You tie them up so the kids can hit them with sticks
Yeah. And Sundays, they'd all go watch the hanging.
right after church.
Yep.
All right. Glad we don't live in those times anymore, huh?
Uh-huh.
And so they get the money back, and I think it's Mary Margaret is counting the reward money, and
Yes.
she, 27 or 24, 25, 26, 28. And Annabelle's like, 27. She goes, "Are you sure?" "Oh, I'm sure." And Maverick's like, "She would know." And so they give Maverick his 10%. And Margaret Mary are talking about how they only have 27,000, not 30,000, and that's just not enough to start a mission. But don't worry, because the Lord will provide. And they look directly at Maverick right after that and gives him puppy dog eyes, as well as the puppy dog that's with them gives puppy dog eyes.
Yeah.
And Maverick decides, "Oh, you know what? Fine. Here's your 3 grand. Go start your mission."
He said he had another line from his pappy too. There,
Oh,
did you write that down?
no. I just another Pappy quote. Did you write what it was?
No, I didn't write what it was. This is your thing.
It was really long.
It was, but the gist of it was like, well, it definitely said, "Don't take money from ladies in need," and here you go. You can have your money back. And Annabelle's pretty fussed about it.
Because she wants her cut
Right. She's like,
still.
He's like, "Fine. You want half what I have here?" And he gives her a coin.
Yeah.
I don't know what size coin it was, but she spits in his hand.
His hand might have been empty,
That could have been too. I thought there was a coin in it, but
and then he wipes it off on her shirt.
yeah. Because Coop's like, I don't know if we said it, but these guys were whites masquerading as natives to
Yes, they were, to play on the fears of settlers.
right. And Coop's like, well, if those guys weren't the ones playing the drums, who was doing that?
And then Annabelle goes, "Well, maybe it was them," and points to a very large tribe of natives who are standing on top of a hillside looking down.
Yes.
Then we see Graham Greene there, and he starts speaking in his native tongue,
Yes.
which Maverick knows,
Yes.
but pretends like, or first asks if anyone catches what he said.
Yeah. He's like, did anybody catch that? He wants to
And they,
know if they can speak freely in his native language or if anybody else is gonna pick up on what they're saying.
and nobody does, which is fortunate. So he basically is having this conversation with his friend and being like, "Hey, like these people are terrified of natives and play into like all the stereotypes to really scare them."
Right.
And then
Yell and shoot your guns in the air and
yeah, it's just
Graham Greene's
like
character is like, how long is this gonna take? It's hot out here.
yeah, and he's like, "Just do it, and I'll explain later." And his buddy's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, sure." And so they play along and just, freak out the settlers, and eventually it gets to where Maverick explains that we're on sacred ground and someone needs to go and pass their bravery test where they cut off both your hands, and if you don't make a sound, you pass. And which what?
It's just making stuff up to scare them.
Pretty much, yeah. And so Coop's like, "Oh well, I'll go and whatnot because I owe you for the wheel thing."
Maverick's like, no, no, no. I can't do what you do, Coop. You have to get these people to safety and out of the get them to a town, and I'll go.
I'll go do the bravery test, and I'll meet up with you later at the game.
Yes.
And so yeah, that settles that. Maverick sends himself off. Annabelle calls him Brett for the first time ever.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so yeah, he goes off with the natives and
His
his
friend Graham Greene plays a guy named Joseph. That's his name.
Joseph, yeah, calls him Joe. And so they're side by side, and Joe's like, "Hey, you want to tell me what this is all about?" Kind of at the side of his mouth, and Maverick's like, "Yeah, I'll tell you later. Hold on." He goes, "Okay, you'll tell me later. Okay." And then it cuts to Maverick riding a bike with some kids,
Yep.
and then
Very, very dated, old looking bike. I mean, for the time in
65, I think it was,
1880,
or 1880.
1880-ish. Yeah.
Okay. And then he falls over and it shows him catching up with Joe. And he's like, "Oh, I about killed myself on that bike." He goes, "Well, you're the first one to ever ride it. We got it from some rich Russian guy living nearby who wants to, he,
The real native experience, like from the books. How
yeah,
white man.
he wants me to talk like they do out of the books, and just, totally mocking the stereotypes that they had back then. And so, yeah, they're catching up, and he's talking about the money he needs and whatnot, and Joe gets an idea.
Yeah, because Joseph says, "Sorry, I don't have it."
Yeah, because nobody has the money,
Right, right. Nobody has the money to pay him.
right? And so he's like, "I have an idea. I'm gonna go square it away." And so Joseph goes. We see the Russian guy. He goes to the Russian guy, and he starts, you know, talking to him normally. And the Russian guy's like not having it, and he says something, and you see Joe go, kind of get this like fed up look on his face, but like reluctantly going because he's getting paid for it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just like,
He's getting he's getting money for this experience. So
yeah. So the Russians paying him to be a Native American stereotype. And
yes,
he's just like over it, but he's like, but it's money. So he plays along and starts, talking in the what now would be offensive.
right. He's like, "How white man?" This
Yeah.
very, very over it, dry. Just
Yeah. He's playing along just because it's money, but he's not making it a performance.
no, no. And the Russian's all happy. He's like, "Hello, noble savage. Haha. What's up?"
Yeah. And so he basically says, "Here's the Russian's like, I've killed everything. avid hunter. He's like, I've killed all the animals around and I'm bored. And Joseph's like, hey, well, why don't you shoot a Native American?
Yeah, greatest Western thrill of all.
Yeah, the greatest way. Yeah,
Shoot a native.
and this intrigues the Russian guy,
It is, yes. Y-
and yeah, so they agree,
yeah, the Russians like, is this legal?
and he's
And
like,
just like, you
it's
know
okay.
what? Whiteman's been doing it for years. It's fine.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's fine. It's $1,000. He's sick anyway. Like it's a mercy thing. You're putting him out of his misery.
Yeah,
And so he agrees to the $1,000. And so he's looking for Maverick, who's dressed up in Native American
over
garb.
the top, ridiculous. I don't.
It's over the top. It's basically what the Russian guy saw in a book and was
Yeah,
like, do this.
yeah.
And
He's got
so
makeup all over his face. He's
got the full headdress.
right. And Joseph nudges him like, act sick.
Yeah, he's like, act sick. And he's like, did you get a hold of his gun to alter it? And he's like, no, he wouldn't go near it. But I have an idea. And so he's like, it's considered dishonorable to die by the white man's weapon. Like, here, you have to use our weaponry to kill him. That's
Yeah, so he
noble.
gives him his bow.
Yeah. And he shoots the bow and messes up his hand.
Yeah, he misses Maverick by not much, if I recall.
No, it's not. It's luckily the tree was there.
Yeah,
It's only by like 2 inches or 3 inches. It's very close. And yeah, he hurts his hand with the bow and hurls an insult at Joseph and then grabs his rifle. And Joseph's like, no, no, if you're going to use that, it's 1,000 more. And the Russian guy at this point is like, fine. And
yeah,
so picks up his gun, aims, and fires. And Maverick perfectly plays like he got hit.
yeah. Just as the Russian aims, Joseph goes, ah! So Maverick can look up and he looks over at them and then
And
drops,
it's like, oh
basically.
no, yeah.
Fun fun fact too, this bit was shot in Yosemite Valley in California.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, you can see the Half Dome Mountain in the background when Maverick gets quote unquote shot by the Russian.
Okay. I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
You could see that Joseph is worried after Maverick goes down because he's not 100% sure the Russian guy missed.
Exactly. He's kind of looking at it, looking over there.
And then the Russian guy's like, "Well, are you just gonna leave him there for the vultures?" And Joseph's like, "Well, I didn't like him very much. Anyway, let's go.
Let's go get the money.
Let's go get the yeah, basically,
And he sees Maverick's head poke up just a little bit.
yeah." And he's like relieved.
Yeah, so he's ushering the Russian guy along.
Yep. And then, so yeah, so then they're back at the camp and they're talking about um, what happened. And Maverick's clearly mad because he's like, I almost got killed. There's arrows whizzing by my head, bullets missing me by an inch. And Joseph's like, oh, here, shoot my bow. Go ahead and shoot it. And he's like, okay, 5 seconds, go. Like he's going to shoot him and hunt him down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then so Maverick, shoots it and drops it and curses because his hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, anyone who uses my bow can't use their hand for at least half a day.
It's like I saved your life.
Yeah, saved your life, man. And then he gives him $1,000.
Yeah, he's like,
He's like,
"Hey, you earned it."
it's all you. I was able to talk that guy up to $1,000 though. And Maverick's like, oh, you could have talked him up to two. And Joseph's like, oh, no, 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 that's too far. That's too greedy. Even though that's what he did.
Yep. So
So
Joseph got his 1,000 and Maverick got
and
his 1,000.
and they're square.
Yep.
I think. I don't know if they're square, but we're gonna go ahead and gonna call it that. And so we got Maverick on horseback, traveling back to. I think he's headed to the game now. He's still 2,000 short, but he's
Yep.
headed at least to the game to meet up with the party.
Yeah, he thinks he's hoping he can get the rest gambling.
Yeah, along the way. And so as he's traveling, he sees a horse kind of standing by itself. And as he investigates, he sees a man laying injured on a rock. As he goes over to check that out, he turns the guy over and reveals is it a familiar face to him or has he not seen this guy yet?
No, he hasn't seen this guy, but the guy's looks like he's been shot in the face or had his eye messed up. Just kind of a shocking face.
Yeah. And then he smiles at him.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
he's got the scar over his, part of his face, his eyes, I don't know if it's missing or
it's all whited out.
yeah, yeah, and then he smiles at him.
Yeah, and then Angel and another one of Angel's cronies start beating him up.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that these 2 other guys were in different cities on the river looking for Maverick.
Possibly, yeah. They were all just kind of out.
The game's gonna be on a riverboat on this river. There's little settlements lost along the river trying to get there, and if Angel and his guys are just looking in different cities for Maverick, then once he got the telegram to not let Maverick get the game, and send the telegram to the other guys and say, "This way, let's go."
Yeah, so they're all like kind of searching, and then once one of them finds him, and then yeah, Angel says, before Maverick blacks out, he says, "First, I was just gonna prevent you from getting to the game, but after the stunt you pulled, I'm gonna kill
It
you, I guess."
yeah, it's personal.
It's personal, yeah. And then we're back to where we were at the
Which
start of the movie.
which really, Maverick didn't do anything to him except embarrass him.
Well, and then he teased them pretty good.
Yeah, but
Like, he did openly mock him
oh, yeah, because that
in front of a full bar of people.
yeah, it's
Made
not like
him
took money from him, they don't no one else knows that Maverick paid the other guys off, so it's like, "Okay,
fair, but still.
you embarrassed me, now you're gonna die."
Basically, yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And so now we're back where we were at the start of the movie with
"You embarrassed me in front of 4 guys that I beat up." Yeah,
and so now we're back to where we started the movie, with Maverick with a noose around his neck, tied to a tree, bag of snakes on the ground, on horseback, tied behind his back. And he's alone. Angel and the cronies have taken off because they
yep,
don't want to be associated with Maverick's accidental death, is the way he put it. And Maverick gets lucky, and the tree branch breaks.
yeah, yes, Maverick is very lucky.
Yes, pulling him backwards off the horse, and he lands on the ground with the snakes all around him, and he tells his horse to go.
Ollie the horse.
Ollie the horse tells Ollie to go, and Ollie goes. And
Good
then he
horse.
tells Ollie to stop, and Ollie does not stop.
No, he keeps dragging him.
For a while, too.
Yeah, yeah, and eventually his boot pops off and he's able to get his foot out of the stirrup, and he shakes loose the wad of money from inside his pants.
Yes, he does.
He has been good about hiding his money on his person.
Yes, to where no one finds it, because that would be a
Yes.
lot of money to lose.
Yes, that would be a lot of money to lose.
And that
And
maybe,
I'm sure they rifled through his bags and everything, but I doubt they would check his pants.
right. They might have even checked his boot.
Yes, but the wad of money was up basically at his thigh.
Yep, he's done very good at keeping it. He's to safety, and it cuts and it shows us the riverboat that the big game is on. He gets to the boat, he runs into Annabelle. He's still 2,000 short.
Which this whole scene, the whole scene with them on the boat, on the exterior of the boat, has some of the worst ADR.
Thank you! I was gonna mention, I have it down here in my notes a little bit
Okay,
later.
sorry.
And I'm like, I was telling Rachel, I go, this whole boat scene is ADR.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they shot it on an actual steamboat, so the sound would be awful. They couldn't use the
Horrible.
actual stuff, but it didn't line up well at all. The ADR
No,
is
it's
awful.
so bad. And Rachel's like, how can you tell? And I go, look at the mouth flaps. They
Yeah,
don't line up.
and it sounds off too. Even if they use that audio and it's synced up perfectly, it would sound like it's recorded elsewhere. It didn't feel right.
The ADR on this entire exterior is not good. But yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I'm like,
Okay.
there's no way Marshall did not notice this, and I
Nope.
cannot wait to get into it because they actually used a lot of ADR in this movie,
Yes.
in at least the last half.
Well, some of it was good, but a lot of it, I mean, you noticed almost all of it.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of it.
Yeah. Especially when they're on boats.
Yeah, well, that's all outside, but like when they were on the riverboat, the ADR wasn't that bad then.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell if you were looking for it,
Right.
but
And,
like,
and once they're inside the boat and there's not river water and outside noises affecting it, I mean, it's basically on a soundstage or something.
yeah, the interior
Sound is a
shot.
whole lot better.
So he reconvenes with Annabelle. We realize that she's 4,000 short. He's 2,000.
Right. And he fakes her out with the hand thing. She's like,
Yeah.
"How'd you escape?"
And yeah, he's like, well, they only cut off one of my hands.
Yeah, so holds
He's
up one hand and holds up the stub where he had pulled his hand inside his sleeve, and then pops it out. It's like, "Ah, I gotcha."
yeah.
Uh, and that something we didn't touch on too is talking when he was talking to Joseph, he's like, what do I tell them? How do I escape with both my hands?"
Oh yeah.
And Joseph's like, tell him the truth. Tell him you got us all drunk up on firewater and ran away in the confusion."
Works for me.
I like that he called that the truth.
Yeah. While he's talking to Annabelle, he sees the Russian that tried to kill him.
Yes.
and, and gets an idea, and he excuses himself and goes and basically taps the Russian and goes, "Excuse me, I need you for a minute." And the Russian guy goes, "Do you know who I am?" And he goes, "No, but I know who I am. Department of Native American Affairs or something like that."
Yeah.
You see the Russian guy get really scared, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And Maverick comes up with this whole big ploy of like that he knows exactly what he did, and he's facing 10 years in prison plus a $6,000 fine.
Yeah, that Joseph talked and he's gonna be in jail for a long time.
Yeah. And the Russian guy's like, "Well, I have money on me. Here, just take the 6,000 and we'll call it square." So he pulls out a big wad of cash, counts out 6,000, hands it to Maverick, and Maverick's like, "Okay, yeah, I guess I don't have time for all that paperwork."
Yeah, yeah, he's going home anyway, so
Yeah, grabs the 6,000, puts it in his pocket as he turns to leave, grabs the rest of the money out of the Russian's other hand, and walks away.
which based on the pile of money they took from the Russian the first time is about another 6,000.
Which, yeah, I mean, what did he do with that other 6,000?
Now he just has more money.
Yeah, I guess a lot of money.
It is a
just
lot of
to
money.
just up and steal from somebody.
Yeah. So he needed the 25,000 to enter the tournament, and I didn't look up current. I just saw a fun fact for it. That would be somebody raising $600,000 in 2004. In 2004, that would have been $600,000, the price of a house. So nowadays, it'd be probably a bit more. I did not look up the inflation of that.
We have the time.
The last time we told people to do it themselves,
Yeah, I'm not going to. 25,000.
did we get complaints
No,
from our parents?
nope.
You pick a different planet?
Yeah, it would be worth roughly 750,000 today.
Okay. So, yeah, a bit more, but yeah, imagine raising that amount of money for a poker game.
Wow. Well, then he literally just robbed 6,000 from the guy.
True,
So like
which would be
100,000, the
ish,
equivalent of
yeah.
100,000
Yeah.
nowadays. He just thank you.
Yoink.
Yep. And so he goes back to Annabelle and he goes, "Hey, I got something for you, and you're in the game," and hands her the $4,000.
Yeah. And she's like, "Yeah, you're the best."
And she calls him Brett again, I think, or Bert again.
I think she calls him Brett.
Maybe she calls him Brett. Anyway, everyone boards the ship.
Well, Maverick's like, "If you do win, I expect half your winnings." And she's like, "Well, then I expect half of yours." And
Um,
he's like, maybe we just think of this as a loan then,"
right,
as they start headed into the boat.
as they're heading to the boat, and as they're walking in, they do a really good job of like showing the interior of the boat and what it looks like. And then as they're walking by, Maverick sees Angel and his buddies and decides he's gonna, well, he punches two of them,
Yeah, he's gonna start something.
and then Angel blocks his punch.
Yeah, yeah, they're sitting at a bar, and he taps one of them on the shoulder and hits him, and when the other guy turns around, he hits the other guy, and
Angel's ready for it at this
Angel's the
point.
last one to turn around, but he's ready for it at this time because 2 of his his 2 friends just got punched. In a scene that I equate to, a scene from Pirates of the Caribbean, where Angel and his guys just left Maverick to hang, and all of a sudden, he's there. It's like, "How did you get there?" And there's the scene from Pirates of the Caribbean where Barbossa leaves Jack on an island with, Elizabeth, and then they're back at the cave, and then Jack starts walking up. It's like, "What are you doing here? I just left you on an island, like, 20 minutes ago." And it's just that
Surprise of what?
yeah.
They get stopped from having their brawl, and Angel, as Angel walks by, Maverick sticks his foot out and trips him, which I liked.
Yeah, as much as Angel is supposed to keep him away and wants Maverick dead, he's at the game. There's hundreds of people around. You can't do anything now.
Nope, you gotta just let the chips fall where they may. And so it goes to everyone's basically crowded in the poker room, and Commodore gets up and starts announcing that the tournament is getting ready to begin. First, he says that I own this boat, so that's a rich guy.
Yeah.
He owns his own boat,
Yeah.
so that's impressive. And he starts announcing the rules: play till you drop, winner take all, cheaters go overboard.
And lose their entry fee. You're cheating, you just get chucked overboard.
And security is handled by Marshall Zane Cooper.
Yes,
This
we
is
find out he is
a
a
Marshall.
United States Marshal, not a sheriff, not a basic deputy or anything. He is a US Marshal.
Yes. And he pulls out his guns and he says these are the only two guns allowed on board, and anyone else who decides they want to break that rule had better be faster than he is.
Yes. And he
As and he proceeds to put his left hand gun away in his holster and drop his right hand gun on the floor. To
yeah.
the amusement of everybody. And I don't know if that was an actual accident and that they kept in,
You know,
or
I was
if it was on purpose.
looking to see if that was something that just happened and they kept it in. I couldn't find anything on it.
I would like to believe that maybe it was something that James Garner ad-libbed. And so now we get everyone lined up to turn in their entry fee into, it's like a little suitcase type thing. And then
Um,
what?
the gun drop was an accident.
It was an accident.
Yes, just like Jodie Foster stumbling off the carriage after Mel Gibson takes the parasol, James Garner dropping the gun was an accident that they loved because he handed them the gun and they just left it in.
Perfect. I love that. Okay. And
I
so,
found it.
yeah. Good. I'm glad you did. So yeah, we they get all the entry fees, and Coop is holding the bag that it's all in and says, "We are 25,000 short of $500,000 in here. There's one entry fee missing, Commodore, if you would." And so the Commodore pays his entry fee, and they turn to the safe, and Coop says, "Now this safe was brought here specifically for this. I am the only one who knows the code or the password. So, or the combination. That's it. Combination's on safe."
And when the Commodore hands him the money, he's like, "Do I need to count it?"
They lock up the money and he said, "All right, find your spot and let the game begin." And we go into the movie's second montage.
Yes, and a song that feels a bit out of place in the movie.
I thought so too.
It's a more upbeat and more modern song, I'd
Yeah.
say.
It's not jaunty nor old timey.
No, it's not old timey. It's more of a modern song. Did not look up the song, but it seemed a bit out of place for the movie thus far.
Oh, and earlier it was revealed that there are 20 people in the game. If you couldn't math
Yes, if you didn't
25
want
times 20.
to if you didn't want to math that.
Second montage ends with our first cheater being caught and very violently thrown overboard.
Yes, and this is the guy that had the cards up his sleeves.
Yeah. Yeah, he's reaching for his pot and Coop comes over and goes, "I don't think so." Pulls up his sleeve and
Yep.
reveals that he has one of those intricate metal
Yeah, one of
card.
the card delivery systems that either sticks out, you can put a card in it and pull it back into your sleeve,
Yeah.
put one out, or yeah.
So they throw him overboard
Yeah,
and then they
just
divide the chips up evenly
like,
among the
better know how to
table.
swim. Good luck.
Basically, which that's pretty brutal to just throw someone overboard in the middle of a river.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's a fast moving river, but still, it's a good swim back.
Yeah. And then it goes back to more people playing cards, and then we catch the second guy cheating. He sits back, and what Coop comes over and like opens up his
Yeah, it's
shirt.
the old guy with the top hat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he sits back and Coop opens up his shirt, just shows the device inside there with bits of cards coming out. He's like, "You're out."
Yep. And so they bring him over, and they let he says, if it's okay, I'd like to do it myself."
Yeah, he grabs
And
his little top hat and jumps.
yep. You see his little legs flailing, and I thought it was nice that Coop let him. He goes, "Oh yeah, it's your pleasure, sir. Go ahead and jump off." And then we get to the numbers dwindling down, and the night's it's clearly late, and the numbers have dwindled, and we start seeing the final losers lose. As we draw close to the final four, you see The Commodore beat a guy who he gets four of a kind and beats the other guy who had a full house, and you see him cry. And was it the dealer who gets up and says, "Oh, let's go get you a drink,"
Yeah,
and he walks off crying, and Commodore
um,
and Coop have a little bit of a chat.
about poor players who can't afford to lose. This is where you can see who's script everything together to be here versus people who are rich who are here.
Right. People who are gambling with their whole life savings.
Right. Versus this guy that's playing Annabelle.
It's Annabelle next, who beats. Does she bluff him out?
Don't think she bluffed him.
But he very gracefully says it was a pleasure. He said, "Oh, it was the most fun I ever had losing."
Yeah, and he's just smiling and walking away as she leans as far over as she can to pull in all her chips.
Right. And each time they win, someone wins, the dealer says, "I'll make sure your chips are there for the final table."
Yeah, and then she another bit of the clumsiness. She slides out of her chair.
Then it goes to Angel, who wins.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of just wasn't a back and forth or anything. It's just he just wins, puts his hands up, is like, we're good.
And the guy gets up, and I think it's his wife that comes up, and he just kind of sticks his hand right in her face.
Yeah,
He gets up, finishes the drink, puts his hand right in her face, and goes into his room and slams the
yeah,
door.
yeah. Then that guy is like, okay, he probably wasn't his life savings, but it was a lot of money.
He felt it, and his wife probably didn't want him to play in the first place. And then it goes to Maverick's table, and I really like the way this played out
Yeah,
because it was I think it was kind of a call earlier to where in the first time he played Angel in the bar oh so long ago when he bluffed
yeah,
that I totally glossed over, and Angel picks up his cards and he's like, "Hey, you didn't pay to see those." So the guy calls Maverick, and Maverick just kind of slides his hand face down over to the guy, and the guy picks it up and looks at it, looks up, smiles, sets it down, gets up and shakes his hand and says good luck and walks
yeah.
away. And then the dealer gets up and shakes his hand. And I don't know if you caught this, but when the dealer stands up, his chair sticks to him.
Because he's been sitting there a while. It's just
Yeah. He gets up and the chair comes with him. And so he ends up reaching behind him and grabbing the chair and shaking Maverick's hand, but he's got this chair attached to his backside.
nice.
That's funny. The final four is the Commodore, Angel, Annabelle, and Maverick. It's now 4 o'clock in the morning.
This is where we get the next guy that gets tossed off the boat.
Not quite.
Okay,
It comes in a little bit.
okay. You have it written down.
I think so. No, I don't think I do. But they
I think
call it an hour break.
yeah,
Everyone is back at 5 o'clock. Whoever's not back in the room at 5 o'clock forfeits their chips.
very strict with the timeline.
Both Maverick and Annabelle are looking for each other, and they knock on each other's door and they start making out. So it shows, yeah, they're on Maverick's bed making out,
Yes.
and it shows Maverick putting his wallet, reaching over, putting his watch into the nightstand and closing it for safety. And then it cuts to outside in the hallway, and we've got the timekeeper, I guess you'd call him, announcing that there's 30 minutes left, and then it goes into Maverick's room, and they're doing stuff, and Maverick's head pops up from behind the bed.
They're engaged in Congress.
They're engaged, in, sure, why not? And then Maverick's head pops up and goes, "Hey, he's 4 minutes fast."
yeah,
And then
we got time.
you see Annabelle's hand reach up and pull him back down, and it's somewhere in here in the half hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes that Coop bumps into a man and a gun drops on the floor, and he's like, "Oh, is this yours, ma'am?" and picks it up, and the guy's like, "Oh no, it was mine. Oh, it's yours. Can you swim?" And he goes, "Oh, what I mean to say is it was hers. I was just holding it for her."
Yeah, no, but she can't.
And and he opens up his coat and he goes, "This one too?" And he goes, "Yep, holding that one for her too, sir." Coop's like, "Well, why don't you both come with me?" Takes them and throws them overboard. And we're at 5 minutes till game time, and Maverick's getting ready, and we reveal that he is locked in his room. He can't get out, and then it shows the outside of his room, and his door is chained shut.
Yes. After Annabelle had left, someone came by and chained his room shut.
Yes, so he couldn't be to the game. And then It kind of pans from back and forth from Maverick in his room trying to think of what to do, and everyone's sitting around at the table ready to play, waiting for 5 o'clock. To the point where Coop says to the dealer, "It looks like Maverick's going to be a no-show. Why don't you start dividing up his chips now?" And then Maverick goes out his window, grabs one of the curtains, swings
Yep.
around the back of the ship, grabs onto the railing, climbs over, runs down on starboard side, kicks the
Yes.
door open, and says, "Wait!"
As the 5 o'clock is chiming.
Yeah. And they give him a pass. And they're like, "Well, he's here." During this scene on the boat, though, I think I glossed over it, but I'll touch on it now. They they always cut to an exterior shot of the boat to symbolize a lot of time passing.
Yes, so you can see early on it was dark. It's starting to get lighter out. You had sunrise, and now it's day.
It's getting, yeah,
It's getting there because it's
it's
5 a.m.
5 a.m. and then it goes to daytime again, and now we're back we're closing into on the final hands.
Yes.
Because it's Annabelle's turn to bet, and she's like, I see you're this much," and she's like, "Oh, well, can I just bet everything I have left?" And pushes all of her chips in. Commodore folds, Angel folds, Maverick starts to fold, and then you see him listen for a second, and he calls and says, "Oh, right, all I got is a pair of sixes. If you can beat that, then you made me look quite the fool." And she's like, "I'm out of the game. You put me out of the game. How did you know I was bluffing? I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't flick my hair, I didn't hit my teeth." And she starts listing off all her tells that Maverick listed, and he's like, "You held your breath." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, you always breathe really heavily when you're excited."
And she's like, "I did not hold my breath." And she looks at the other players like, "Did I hold my breath?"
And they all are like, "Yep,
Yep.
yes."
And the nicest you've ever seen Angel look in this movie, he's just like, "Yeah."
And she's like, "Well," gets up and she goes, "I'll just pretend like I was playing with somebody else's money." And he's like, "Well, that shouldn't be too hard to do." Because we're to assume that she almost got the entirety of her money by either stealing it from somebody or having it given to her by conning people, and the last of it as a gift for
Right.
Maverick.
Although I dare say she raised a couple thousand while he was talking to the Russian
Oh
with all
yeah.
those
Oh that.
with all the guys around her when he came back.
Oh yeah. That's absolutely what she was doing. I'm like, she probably already has the 4,000 right there. And then okay, and so here it goes to the boat, exterior of the boat, and comes back in to the final three, and it focuses really hard on the dealer shuffling and Maverick very much watching his hands. And then the dealer passes the deck over to Angel to cut. He knocks it, and as he pulls the deck back in, he places a new one on the table.
Yes, in the subtlest of moves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people were just that dumb in 1880 because it wasn't smooth at all.
But no one said anything about it.
And then he starts dealing from the bottom of the deck, which, if you were going to swap with a rigged deck, wouldn't you make sure that, wouldn't you rig it on the top so that's not more for you to get caught doing? If you rigged a deck that you're going to put into play, don't make it so you have to deal it from the bottom. Make it so once you've made the swap, you're out of the woods. Not, okay, okay, I got away with swapping the deck. Now I have to deal 15 cards off the bottom without getting caught.
Unless it was specifically Angel's cards that were getting dealt from the bottom, because at the switch, I mean, unless this plan was to switch when there was 3 players left. Let's finish up, and then we can talk about the cheating.
No, we're in it now.
No, not the whole thing, just how this hand plays out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about it at the end. So they all get their cards. Commodore's got three of a kind, three eights. Angel's two shy of a straight flush, and Maverick is one shy of a royal. So they all bet really hefty amounts.
Right, those are all great hands, and that deck swap was to end the game, basically.
Right, to be done with it. So Commodore takes two cards and gets his fourth eight. Angel takes two cards, gets his straight flush. It comes to Maverick. Maverick says, "I want one card, but not from you. Put the deck down." And he basically says he wants a whole new hand because he saw exactly what was going down. And Coop steps in and says, "You can't do any of that. If you want, you can have a new dealer." And so he looks at Angel and he goes, "I want one from you. And Angel's like, from me, and he goes, yeah, just one from the top of the deck would be fine. And
Yes.
Angel's like, I like that. It shows trust. And with one finger, puts his finger on the top of the deck and just slides that top card over to him. And Maverick takes it and sets it to the right of his chips and leaves it there. Doesn't look at it, just leaves it set right there and continues on with the game. And Commodore goes, well, ain't you gonna look at your card? And Maverick's like, oh, there's no need. And Angel's very upset at this for some reason. He's very mad that he's not looking at the card.
Yes, yes, he is.
And he's like, we should look at the card. What kind of poker are you playing?
I don't think we said it, but everybody's all in at this point.
Not yet. Then it comes into the count because he said there's no need. And then Angel yells at him. And then Commodore kind of shakes it off and he goes, I'm going to, well, let's just put it in there.
Oh,
And
that's right. He
so,
says, "I'm in the most debt here. Let's put it all in."
yeah. So he puts in all of his chips. And then Angel says, here's for the Commodore. That about covers the Commodore. And he says, looks at Maverick and goes, well, you and I are about even, aren't we? And he goes, I'm going to raise you everything I've got.
Maverick's the one that covers the Commodore.
Well, he's because Angel's, I see the Commodore.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
puts
I
in,
see the Commodore. Yes, and
yeah.
then says, "We're about even."
I'm going to raise you everything I got. That's $500,000 to the winner. And Maverick still won't look at his card. And Maverick goes, that should cover the Commodore. And yeah, here we go. And then the dealer actually organizes the chips. I didn't catch this before, but he organizes the chips. And he goes, here you go, Commodore. This is your section of the pot. So if the Commodore would win,
Oh, that's what he said. This should cover the Commodore's bet.
yeah.
So
Because
if the Commodore does win, he gets from this side, not what these two put in.
right, right. Because it was raised and the Commodore has no money, the Commodore would get only what matched his winnings from the other two, and the rest would get their money back. I think that's how it worked.
I think so too.
So we get to the reveal time, and the Commodore goes, "I have got two small pair," and starts flipping over his cards, eights and eights, revealing
He's got
he's
a
got
four of a
four of a
kind.
kind. And he is very proud of himself. He is extremely proud of himself.
That is a fantastic hand.
Yeah, it is a very hard hand to beat. And he celebrates by putting a cigar in his mouth. And then Angel once again, it's like, you're not gonna look at your card to Maverick. And then he goes, then how are you gonna know if you can beat my straight flush? And shows a very beautiful 2 through 7 straight flush. Or 3 through 7 straight flush. I don't remember what it was. It's only
It
five
was a
cards.
straight flush. To which the Commodore's happy smiling face as his card drops, as does the cigar.
Yes, because he has been beat by an essentially an unbeatable hand. The odds of having it's essentially unbeatable because the odds of having anything better, having a straight flush and something better in the same hand are astronomical. And so Maverick puts down the 10 of spades, the jack of spades, the queen of spades, the king of spades.
Yes, and Angel's looking panicked.
Everyone's just in total suspense because Maverick hasn't looked at his card yet.
Correct. And Angel is shocked at what Maverick has, which, with the deck swap and everything set up,
Why?
yeah,
Because
I
maybe be with the deck swapped the way it is. Of course, he would have to have an astronomical hand to
yes,
stay in and bet on it,
right, to stay in and bet on it.
because they wanted him to bet like it was a sure thing,
Right.
like he was gonna win.
See, that's why I said don't look at the don't look at it too much there, because the betting would happen after they got their cards. So Maverick would still have to have a good hand to want to put in more money.
So he would probably have to have a flush, or yeah, he would have to have gotten a flush. Because even if he would have pulled the 9, that's still a higher straight flush than
Yeah,
Angel had.
so he would have had to get like the two of spades or the four of spades, because he'd have all spades, he'd have a flush, but he wouldn't have the straight flush that Angel had.
Right. But he couldn't have had a straight flush that beat the straight flush that Angel
Right.
had, which he would have by his going to King. So he would have had to it would have had to deal with him getting a flush, which I don't know if that would be a good enough hand for him to bet the farm on, especially if everybody else is betting the farm.
Yeah. But we're down to Maverick's last card.
We're down to Maverick's last card. Yes. And he does his whole magic card cutting thingy, closes his eyes, picks up his card, looks at it, and sighs very heavily because it's not the card. And then Everyone's like, oh, Angel's relieved. And then he flips the card out and it lands face up on the stack of poker chips and reveals that it was a fake out. And yes, indeed, he drew the ace of spades, has the royal flush, wins the hand, the pot, the game, and everything. Angel goes into a rage, calls him a cheating son of a biscuit, and pulls out a gun, at which point Coop draws his gun. Maverick draws Coop's other gun, and they shoot Angel and his two friends dead. And
Yes.
Commodore, in a very angry tone, tells Coop that his security isn't worth garbage because everybody on the boat has a stinking gun.
Yes.
And so after that, we cut to Coop taking the money out of the safe and congratulating Maverick on his winning, and then
Yes.
saying, yeah, I don't know if it's all this money. I don't know if it's that I haven't slept, but I'm going to take the money. Everyone thinks he's joking, and then he pulls a gun on Maverick, tells him to get down the stairs, tells the Commodore to join him, and runs off with the money. And then Commodore tells one of his servants to go get my gun, and they all chase after him.
Coop's in one of the little boat to shore boats. This little steam powered, 15-foot little boat.
Yeah, are those the lifeboats?
Yeah. Yeah, or they're
Okay.
there to get people on the riverboat without the riverboat having to dock.
Okay. And so Commodore's getting ready to shoot Coop from quite a distance. And did you see the scope on that gun? It was as long as the gun was.
Yeah, those old scopes used to be long.
There's no magnifying quality to it either.
Nope, you're just looking down a barrel.
It's just a tube to give you lineup, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how much it really would help. I don't know how accurate shooting from that distance in 1880 would be.
Not accurate at all.
But either way, Maverick stops him and says, "Ah, heck, it's only money."
Yeah, that's not worth taking a man's life over. The other crowd's like, no.
Yeah, the crowd's all in agreement. It's only money, right, folks? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, when I was watching it last night, I was like, he's flat broke. What is he going to do? And then I was like, oh, wait, he's still got that 6 grand that he took from
Yeah.
from the
the,
Russian guy.
the Commodore's like, it's only money.
Yeah, what are you barking mad?
But Maverick says he's going to issue a warrant against Coop and basically press charges.
Yeah. And then the boat docks. Brett and Annabelle have a touching little moment where they say their goodbyes. And as she's leaving, he does his little magic card drawing thing and draws the Queen of Hearts. I don't know what that would really mean.
But she's the Queen of Hearts.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think there's any more symbolism than that. But yeah, there it is. And then we cut to the Commodore showing up at Coop's campsite.
Yes.
And revealing that they were both in on it together. They reveal what the entirety of the plan was. Coop is unhappy that Commodore brought Angel into it without telling him, but Commodore explains that no matter what happened, the result would have been the same. So he didn't feel it necessary to tell him,
He just didn't want Maverick at the game.
basically. And then Coop says he doesn't like surprises, and Commodore's like, well, you're really not going to like this one, because I'm not splitting the money with you, and he pulls a gun on him.
Sounds like the Commodore might be going through a little bit of hard times financially.
I didn't even think about that. He just bought a boat.
He's a Commodore, he's got a boat, he had this gambling tournament set up. What reason would he want to just have more money and risk everything without his investments? Some of his stuff must be not panning out well.
He could always sell the boat.
He could sell the boat. He's got to keep up appearances.
Yeah, I guess. And if he sells the boat, then
Or like he says, maybe it's just his greedy nature.
maybe that too. That's always that could be the thing. Anyway, Maverick shows up. We get another Pappy quote in here, don't we?
I don't know.
And well, basically, he says he talks to them about how he's going to hunt him down and makes fun of Coop.
Yeah, Maverick shows up with a gun pointed at him.
Yeah, with a gun pointed at him, tells Coop, you gave up everything you've worked your whole life for. You'll never be able to work in law again. Like you've completely disgraced yourself, and that he doesn't know what the honorable thing to do is. Coop says that he will hunt him down, and he calls him a decrepit old has-been who couldn't sneak up on a corpse. And then Maverick decides that the fair thing to do would be let the two of them basically duke it out and last man standing. So he takes the gun, throws it up in the air, and takes off running.
Yep. He's like, "Good luck, guys," and it's out.
Yeah, and so Commodore ends up getting the gun, and Commodore would have shot Coop. He pulls the
Yes, yes,
trigger
he
like
would have.
3 times, and he didn't think twice about it either.
Uh-uh.
And then Coop beats him up and says that he has never picks up a big old branch to club the Commodore to death with, and
Yeah,
says he's never committed a cold-blooded murder in his life, and he's not about to, and puts the stick down and leaves.
not until I get Maverick.
Right, right. Not while Maverick's still around, because I'm saving that first cold-blooded murder for him.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be the first one.
Yeah.
Then I'll come back for the Commodore.
Then I'll get the Commodore, right. And then we cut to Maverick in a nice fancy bathhouse, taking a bath with a glass of brandy and a nice cigar. And you get a little close up of Maverick, and you see some boots behind him of someone walking up, and you hear the gun cock. Nice echo in the bathhouse too. The acoustics are great, and it reveals that it's Coop. And he goes, "A decrepit old has-been, huh? Couldn't sneak up on a corpse. You got $500,000 in your bag right there, and your gun's 8 feet away from you." And then Maverick says, "You know, my old pappy used to say," and gives him another quote. I didn't write down that one either.
He didn't write down any
And
of them.
I wrote down that one.
He said, "What'd you do? Shoot the Commodore in the back?"
Oh yeah,
It's like, no, good idea, but no. It's like my
yeah.
old pappy always said, there's no better reward than cheating on a cheater or something like that.
Yes, that was the one. Because I didn't write it down because I remember it. And then Coop says, "I never said that. You've been misquoting me your whole life," and then he dunks him, and it reveals that Coop is in fact Maverick's dad.
Yes, Brett Maverick Senior.
Which, what?
Brett Maverick Senior.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry,
Is he Maverick? Is he Brett Maverick from Is he still Brett Maverick?
I don't know.
Because Zane Cooper is clearly not his real name.
No, that was the made up alias for this job.
Yeah, and so it was clearly, yeah. Is he Maverick from the series? Is this a continuation, like a sequel
I don't
movie?
know.
And
And I read the
and
book and I don't remember it.
but the movie and the book are always different.
True.
I mean, it could very well be because that's what I thought too. I'm like, well, Zane, okay. So could he be Brett Maverick? Could it be the same character? Because it takes place, just about the right time after,
Yeah,
roughly.
it could be.
That made sense. That would make sense to me if they did it that way. And so, okay, so this is Marshall Zane Cooper. So that means that he is also not a marshal,
No.
which means that the whole thing was a ruse from the Mavericks
Yes.
in the very beginning before all of this. So is that
That's not what he says. Yes, I don't know who. It was a big
because
it was a big ruse because the Mavericks got involved for whatever reason because they like honest card players and they knew the Commodore was going to be cheating at this event, which is why they mentioned that the Commodore won't be able to touch a deck of cards again this side of.
Mississippi?
Yeah, which I don't think they outed him as a cheater. They just outed Cooper as.
Yeah, I don't think the Commodore ever got in trouble. I think the Commodore should be still be good to go. But that might also explain why the Ace of Spades was where it was, because Coop put it there,
Could be.
because he had that, and he's like, okay, well, Maverick's obviously gonna catch on to this. He's gonna know what's going on. He's gonna want a cut from the top of the deck, so I'll put
Yeah.
it there. So when it comes to it,
Not just the incompetence of the dealer to
right? So
fudge the deck.
yeah, because why would you put the Ace anywhere near there?
Right, that ace would not be in that deck if I was doing it.
Not at all. No
No.
way. Not anywhere. No chance of it coming up.
Yeah,
Who's gonna count? Who's gonna count the difference between 52 and 51 cards? You're not gonna
yeah,
notice it unless you count it.
right.
So, but yeah, but then I was thinking about it and how it was set up was Angel was on. It was set up for the Commodore on the top and Angel on the bottom.
Yeah,
So Maverick and the Commodore were off the top of the deck, and Angel was off the bottom. So that way they could control what every single person had. Anywho, so
yeah, we're not even at the end of the movie yet.
no, we're not. So it cuts to Coop and Maverick now in the bathtub, having a cigar and a glass of brandy.
Yes, Coop's shaving off his mustache.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They're looking much more like father and son now.
Yes, yeah. And looking much more like the James Garner that we all know and love. And then Annabelle sneaks in and she's like, "Oh, look at you in the bath with $500,000 in your bag over there. And your gun is 6 feet away from you." And Coop and Maverick at the same time both say 8 feet.
8.
Yeah. And she smiles and says something about the family resemblance.
Yeah.
And they're both shocked and they go, "How did you know?" And she's like, "Oh, you both have the same height, the same build, and you both sing the same wrong words to Amazing Grace." They both
Do
go,
not.
"Do not." And then she takes the money and runs
Yep,
and
and,
says, "I will send the lady in with more hot water for you."
yep,
Oh, and she drops off a shirt from San Francisco for Brett.
yes. This is from the finest shirt makers in San Francisco.
And Coop says, "Well, all that work and all we have is a $500,000 shirt."
Yeah.
And Maverick says, $250,000 shirt.
It's like my old pappy used to say.
They don't count your chickens before they don't something else. And he says, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." And Coop goes, "Now that I said." And he hands him a boot.
"I got a boot for you." And the other one's twice as full.
And so reveals that he's like, "Oh, I don't know why I left the other half of the money in that bag." And Coop says, "I do." And he goes, "Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun getting it back." And then Coop says, "So I gotta know, how did you pull the ace of spades?" And Maverick goes, "Well, you're not gonna believe me if I told you." And Coop goes, "I'm your father, I'll believe you." And Maverick says, "Magic." And Coop kind of smiles and goes, "I believe you." And then Mel Gibson, which yes, it's Mel Gibson, but he's
Yeah.
playing Maverick. He smiles and it freeze frames on him,
Yes.
and we
And
roll
then
credits.
with Amazing Grace. A little more upbeat, maybe Baptist version, but it is Amazing Grace.
And that was Maverick.
Woo! Maverick.
That was us talking way too long about Maverick.
Ooh, we recorded for a long time on this one. Almost 3
Yeah.
hours.
Oh gosh, that's so much editing. It was a long movie. Final thoughts on the film. Why don't you go? I've been talking for a while.
Okay, I'll go first. I
And
enjoy.
go through puberty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Maverick, like I said, I've watched it a few times in the last few years. It's a movie that's in my rotation of one to put on if I'm doing something like building Legos, or it's a fun movie and I really enjoy it. It's I mean, it fits into that same line for me with the Lethal Weapon movies. It's the same director. It's got a similar feel without Joe Pesci swearing all the time in it. But I enjoy the movie. Found myself nowadays or more recently, like we have been doing in this podcast, picking apart some of the little things like, well, that doesn't make that much sense, and this doesn't make that much sense, but it's still fun. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense. It's just a fun gambling heist.
Yes, it is.
What about you?
I agree with you. A lot of the same. I do want to pause real quick and go back to after Maverick wins.
Okay.
And he turns and he talks and you see his mouth move really fast and it doesn't line up with anything that he says
Oh, yeah,
from
with
the
the 80
ADR.
when he's talking to Annabelle about, I didn't know I was gonna pull that card. Did I ever tell you about the thing?" And she's like, "Shh, you're babbling."
Yeah, like
Yeah,
he said
he's
none of that.
his mouth is just going. And
Yeah,
that's one of those things that's like, what did you say during that take?" Like, "I don't know." Like, "Well, make it match up as best you can."
and he didn't even do that. But my final thoughts on this movie, I absolutely loved it. Rachel and I had such a fun time watching it. Again, it was so enjoyable. Neither one of us had seen it in 25 years. It was funnier than we remembered it being. There was a lot more humor than we remembered being. I think it's because the jokes didn't go over our head.
Right. When you're younger, a lot of things did went over our
Right.
heads.
There was a little more language than I thought, you know,
Yeah.
that I remember there being. So, I mean, but not really that big. I didn't find it offensive. I will watch it with my kids when they're old enough. It was great. Yeah, all around great movie. It was great storytelling, all great acting. The only complaint about it is the poor ADR at the end. Like really.
Yeah.
Other than that, it is wholesome, good family fun
Yes.
overall.
Yeah, it was something we were watching. It came out in '94, so it had to have been a few years after that when we were watching it, but
Yeah, 9 or 10. I was 9 or 10.
yeah, 9 or 10, I was a little older, so family movie
Yeah.
that we watched as a family.
Oh yeah, a lot. Definitely. All right. And I think that wraps up our final thoughts for Maverick. And now we're going to
Yeah,
go on to one of my absolute favorite parts, and I think I want to reiterate. So we are because we're going into our next movie selection, and I just want to reiterate to our listeners that like so Marshall is going to tell us what the next movie is, and like at this point I have no idea what it is. And vice versa for when it's a Marshall episode is so we go into this blind, and when Marshall announces it on the podcast or when I announce the next movie on the podcast, that's when the other person finds out what the movie's going to be.
right. His general shock and his shock and confusion over me saying Airheads the other week was real. He had no idea what that movie was or what I was gonna say. So,
Yes, and then my disappointment that followed was also real.
oh, but I've got something else picked this time,
All right.
and it's a movie that I watched quite a bit growing up.
Uh,
I'm pretty sure you've seen it a few times. I don't remember watching it a lot with you, but it is a classic Kevin Costner film. Yes, and I enjoy this movie, and I enjoy the Universal stunt show just as much. We're gonna watch Waterworld.
I've never seen this movie.
How could you have never seen this? I
I
watched
have
it so much.
no, I have no, what? When did we watch this growing up?
I am so glad you prefaced that with, "I don't know what's coming."
I woo.
You don't re
Okay.
Do you remember the
N-
stunt show at Universal Studios?
No,
Oh, how old were you? Okay, but I watched that movie a bunch.
I got nothing. I have zero recollection of that movie whatsoever.
Okay, well, this should be fun then. It's got Kevin Costner, Dennis Hopper, in a post-apocalyptic world that's covered in water.
Okay, that explanation you gave
Yeah?
is even more foreign to me.
Oh, this should be fun.
This I'm I don't even know what to expect.
Oh, I'm excited.
Wow. All right.
I thought you had seen it.
No. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you for coming along with us on this adventure through the 1880s and Maverick.
Yeah, and Tristan's got to find out where to watch Waterworld at.
I will figure out where to watch Waterworld. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter at WatchItBroPod, or you can email us, watchitbropodcast@gmail.com. Our intro and outro tracks were provided by Nihilor, that intro being Grace, that outro being Haven. I think that's how I close it up, and as always, thank you for watching.